Okay, this week we are going to start talking about how to edit your massing and turn it into a building with articulation. Let's get started. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have in terms of massing. So I am going to work from the tea house. So I put together the attached massing, and we need to come in and we need to start making some articulation. So first let's check that we've got our layers doing some smart things here. So right now I've got 3 layers. I've got my drawings layer. So if I zoom out, you can see all my original drawings moved around how I needed them to make this model. I'm going to turn those off. I've got my massing, and then I have a separate layer for line. So any kind of line work that I need, I've put on my lines layer. Okay, so let's turn on the drawings and let's talk about what to work on next. So I think the thing that we should work on next is putting windows into walls. And we did this a little bit last time in class. But let's start right here. I'm going to hide all the drawing layers I don't want to work on. And here I've got my elevation that has my wall of windows. And if I actually show, I've got that drawing flat, and I've also got the floor plan here that has all the windows shown, right? So there's a couple different ways that you can do windows. So I'm going to go through 2 different ways. So the first and most straightforward way from a drafting point of view is to draw it on the ground plane, extrude it up, and then move it into the vertical plane. So let's start with that. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to call it window 1. And I'm going to make a couple of different window layers, but we'll start with this one. And I'm going to make this hot pink. And we're going to use this to draft on the 2D layer the openings for our windows in this side of the building and this elevation. So first we want to actually take a look at what we have here. I think it's very clear. We've got a bunch of windows that are identical in size, one smaller one, and then a few windows that are a little bit bigger up here. This is where you always want to be going back and looking at your imagery of the building. But the first thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to come in here, and I can do this either in top view, where I'm fully in 2D, which is probably the best place to do that. So let's move to top view. You can also do it in perspective view, but top view will give you a nice, clean, clear way of looking at it. So since we're just tracing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle here. Make sure I'm on the right layer. I'm on the wrong layer right now. I'm going to go onto that window layer so I can change my object. So that's my first window. And then what I want to do is I'm going to copy that. We're just going to look at the opening. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to select that. And then I can use my copy in place, all the different copy tools. I'm just going to copy it in place. And then I'm going to use the gumball to slide this window over. Now I have 2 windows. Now here's the important thing. If you're looking at a building like this where all the windows are the same size and they have the same spacing apart from each other, it's really important that you do that same thing. So right now we have this space between them. So what we can do is now that we have 2, we can use the one window and copy the next. So watch what I do here is I take the copy tool, I select the second window, my left click, make sure I'm on that curve, then I right click, and then what I want to do is go back to the first window, copy from one point on that window, copy to that exact same point on the next window, and you can see it made my 3rd window. And what I can do is I can keep going all the way down this window wall, and it'll give me an equal spacing for every single window. Okay. And I might start to get off a little bit from my drawing because that's a little bit approximated, but it's more important that these are exactly equally spaced than that they perfectly line up with your drawing below. All right. So those are my windows here. And then let's look at that window here, and I'm going to test something. I'm going to take a line. This is what I would call a construction line. And I'm going to see if the top of this window is at the same point as the top of these windows. So I'm going to draw a line that goes all the way across. And look at that. Architects are so smart. We like to line things up. So in that case, I can take one of these windows. I can click on it. On that curve, I'm going to use the copy command again, right click, copy and place, and then use that gumball to slide that opening over here, and it's the same width. Again, architects are so smart. So now I have a window where the opening is taller, so it's in the right place vertically here. It's the right width, but I need to move this line up. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to adjust something that we haven't done before, and this is called changing the control points. So I'm going to click on this outline and this curve, and you can see here we've got these 2 points, or points in every corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these 2 corner points right here, and then I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to grab the second one. And then once I have those 2 points selected, I'm going to slide the gumball up and see how I can adjust just that side of that line drawing. Okay. So we could keep doing this on these windows up here. I'm going to guess these are the exact same spacing as these windows below. So I'm going to select these windows, 1, hold the Shift key down to select multiple, 2, 3, 4. And actually, these all look like they're lined up. So I'm going to select those 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to right click over copy to copy and place. And I'm going to use the gumball to slide these up. And fancy that, they're not quite the same, but they're pretty close. And I can actually use the scale 1D on the gumball to make them a little bit smaller. Look at that. And now I have all the curves for my windows drawn here. And then we need to look at how to get those up onto the second level and then flip them to be in 3D. Okay, so now that I have these windows, what I want to do is I want to look at what's going on in the building. So I'm going to look back at this project here, and I can see I've got my lower windows down here, and I see them right here on the building. And then I have my upper windows here. I'm trying to figure out what's exactly going on here. So I actually have what looks like double or single hung windows, which means they've got a mullion in the middle, but they're much taller windows. So what I can do here is I can actually take these 4 lines that I drew for these 4 windows. And for right now, I'm going to copy them in place and I'm going to slide them down. And then I'm going to do that same thing with moving the points. I'm going to select these points on each of these windows. Let's try that again. I'm going to select the points on each of these windows and I'm going to slide them down. I'm actually going to delete these 3 because what I just did was way faster. And I'm going to select that and copy it. Okay. So let's go into the perspective view. So now what I have is I have all these windows drawn into my elevation. If I hide this view, we can see we just need to get these onto the correct side of the building. So the correct side of the building is going to be over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just quickly draw this rectangle as well with my line tool. Oop. Just with my line tool as a rectangle. So now I can take all of these lines. I'm just going to use my selection tool. I'm going to select all of them. I'm going to group them so I can move them together so they'll keep their spacing. And then I'm going to rotate these upwards 90 degrees. So I'm going to use the gumball here, rotate them 90 so that they're facing up. And then I'm going to move this whole set of lines over to the correct side of the building. And then in this case, I'm going to hide these drawings. And now what I want to do is I want to rotate them 180 degrees, and then I'm just going to shift this so it's centered. Now I've got these windows in the right place, but I need to move these windows back into that wall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a trick I like to do where I use a box to measure, because I want to measure how far it is from this window back to this wall. So I'm going to click here, I'm going to click back at that wall, click back here. So now I know I just need to move these windows from here to there. So watch, I'm just going to make a copy. And I'm going to move them from here back to there. So now I've got these windows on the correct facade, these windows on the correct facade. So I'm just going to take that and I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to get rid of what I don't need. And now I've just got my windows up here. Same thing here. Got my windows here. We'll worry about those later. So now one thing that we want to do when we're making windows and massings is we need to make sure we're punching holes in walls. And right now, these are all solids, the way I built it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call it walls. And then, let's see, we'll make them purple. Actually, we're going to make them orange. So to make these walls, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these surfaces. If you built this as a solid, this is just a solid. I'm going to turn all these surfaces into walls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the solid extrude surface straight here, and then in this case, I'm going to turn my both sides off. My extrusion distance, I'm going to put in 8 for 8 inches. So I have a front wall. And then since this is a box, I could copy that to the back. I can do the same thing here. There's a couple of ways I could build this box. I'm going to show you a different way. Let's take box. Here's a 3-point box that's good for building box vertically. 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, and then 8 is what we said. Three point, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 8. And if we need to move it backwards, we can move it back. And then I'm going to copy it to the other side. Now I can keep my massing, but if I look now, I've got a wall. I can do the same thing for the roof. Corner, corner, 8. We'll leave those overhangs for now. Okay, so if I hide my massing, I have all of these walls. So watch what happens if I want to take these windows, which I built as rectangles, and I want to punch a hole in the wall, I'm going to select all of these. And then I'm going to extrude my curves. And I'm just going to extrude them in both sides some reasonable amount, like there. Then I'm going to use a difference command, solid. You can go to those solid tools. Difference is right here. And subtract out these surfaces. And now I have holes in the wall, right? And I can use those to start making windows. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to repeat the same thing for these windows along the bottom, and then you'll have a whole bunch of punched openings in your walls. So once you have the punched openings, then you have to actually make the windows. So let's talk about making windows. So we'll make 2 layers. We're going to make window, and we're going to make frame. So the window, let's consider this the glass. We'll make it this sort of green color. And then the frame, let's say we make it a nice gray color. Okay. So we already have these lines that we use to make the windows themselves. And we can use these to create the frame. So making the frames, you can guess that window frames are usually 2 inches. So what we're going to do is we're going to offset these curves 2 inches in. So, and we did a little bit of this last time. So now we have 4 curves, each 2-inch offset. So let's change ourselves to the frame layer. And then let's extrude those curves, straight extrude. It's going to extrude them out. So we can do, in this case, let's say we do part way through the window. So the window's 8, maybe we make them 4. So half the depth of the window. So now we've got 2 frames. Now we need the glass. So let's go to window. And we're going to select the inside curves, which are back here. We've got one there, and we've got one there. Hold shift down, so you're selecting both of them, and do the same thing. Let's extrude those planar curves. It's glass, let's just make it 1 inch. And then let's just move that window so it's in the center of the frame. So what we can do here is if we have our snaps on, we can use the move tool, select the center of the glass there, and move it to the center of the window frame there. Look at that. That looks awesome. Now, here's the important part, copying. Because windows are great because we can make one and then copy it everywhere. So first thing I want to do is I want to make this a group. So I'm going to select the 2 pieces of glass and the 2 frames, and I'm going to call it a group. So group objects, Control G, whichever command you like. Now I can use it as a group, and then we also need to move it back into the wall. So let's use the gumball. Slide it into the wall so we can see the frame. And then let's do that same thing we did with the window frame and put the middle of the window frame in the middle of the opening. So select that midpoint there and take it to the midpoint there. Now we have all these curves still from the window. And we can make sure these are all on window 1. That's window 1, all those layers, so you can change that layer so that when we're done making those, we can turn them off. So now I have this window, and then the same way we copied the outlines of the windows, we can also copy the window itself. Window, click, click, click. Okay? So now we have a wall with windows in it. So you just need to repeat that around the perimeter of the building. And if we look at the massing and the windows that we have here, we can do the same thing here. So in this case, I built some of these as walls, so I can actually change them to walls. And then I would just go into these windows and do the exact same thing. I'm just going to do it. Go here, offset, 2. This is still grouped, so I need to ungroup it. Get on my frame layer. Extrude, make that 4. We'll do the window layer. Extrude 1. Move that window to the middle of the wall. Make that a group. Now here, because I haven't punched the hole in the wall yet, what I can actually do is take this and build the bounding box. Remember that command that I told you I loved? And then make that bigger. Use the scale tool and the gumball, make it bigger than the window. And then we can take that, before we copy our windows, we can actually use that to make a bunch of holes in the wall. So we're kind of doing a different order here, just to show you there's a couple different ways to do things. Do you want to make sure you're clicking in the right spots? So I'm just copying this box down to all these windows. Then I can do one big difference. So I could do my solid tools, difference, select the wall, enter, all the things I want to subtract with, all these boxes. And then here, do I want to delete the input? Yes, I'd like all those boxes to disappear once I punch the hole in the wall. So I leave that as yes, hit enter. And there's all the holes in the wall. Then I can take my window, move it back, put it in the middle of the wall, and then copy it into each of the openings. So, 2 different ways to punch the holes in the wall. Pretty simple way to make the windows. If we hide our massing, now we've got windows and windows. We can hide those lines. Everything is looking good. Okay, the next part of the drawing I want to look at is how to do stairs. So we've got some stairs that run from floor to floor in here. And you can tell, if you look at this building, they run all the way up this vertical part of the project. And with stairs, we've got treads, which are the horizontals, and risers, which are the verticals. So what I'm actually going to show you is not how to do these specific stairs, because you all have stairs with different sizes, but how to do stairs in general. So let's zoom out, and let's take a really generic floor plate. So I'm going to draw a box here. I'm going to call that a foot thick. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it. and I move it up 10 feet. Okay? So we're going to say that I want to put a stair from here to here. Now, there's a couple of rules about stairs that everyone should know, and the most important one is that your risers, the vertical part, can't be more than 7 inches tall. So you have to do a little bit of math with stairs. So if we use our distance from here to here is 10 feet. I'm just going to draw a line. We'll use this in a minute. Now let's do some quick math. So I'm going to open a calculator. So 10 feet is how many inches? How do we figure this out? We multiply by 12. 10 feet is 120 inches. So if my stairs have to be 7 inches tall maximum, then I need to figure out how many times 7 goes into 120. And then I have to round up. Okay, so I'm going to take 120, I'm going to divide it by 7. So 7 goes into 120 17.14 times, which means we are going to round up to 18 to figure out our risers. Okay? So now that we know we're looking for 18, I'm going to show you a command here. So that means we need 18 individual steps going from here to here vertically, 18 risers. So I could do all that math out, or I could use a great command called divide. If I type divide, it asks me how many segments I want to have. So if I want 18 different risers, then I want 18 segments here. So I'm going to hit 18, and you can see that Rhino took that line and divided it into 18 segments. So you can do this with any line, with any number of segments, it'll divide it equally. Okay? Now, the other thing we need to know about stairs is a good number for the treads, or the horizontal, is 12 inches. So I'm going to draw a line here that is 12 inches out. Left click, right click. So that's my tread distance. So for every 12 inches, I go up one of these segments. So I can draw a line from point to point, and this is important if you have your snaps on, that you have your point snap on. And I can take that curve that I just drew, copy it over here, and then I've got one tread, one riser. Now I could take both of those together using the shift. I can copy it. Right? See how I'm starting to get some stairs? Or, since I'm working three-dimensionally, I can make a step. So I'm going to use my box tool. I'm going to use the 3-point tool, which I like to use when I'm trying to draw in the vertical orientation. And I'm going to start at the bottom here, take the tread width, go up to the next riser, and then decide how long I want my stair to be. In this case, I'm just going to say 3 feet. And that is my step. So now this is my first step. Now my second step, I can copy it up to there. So that's how much it's going up vertically. And I can move it to the left horizontally. And now you see that lines up with that curve I just drew. And then I can keep copying it. Copy a point. And I can keep going. And how do I know when I get to the top? I can actually take this line, pull it across, and watch, I'll keep copying these, point, until we line up. And they're going to perfectly line up because we use the divide command. So it would be perfectly oriented from one side to the next. So now I have a set of stairs that goes up that 10 feet. Now if I wanted to move them so they were inboard on my plan, I could select them all, put them in a group, and move them over here, depending on where they need to go. Maybe I put them here. Now, one thing to think about with stairs is you usually need a hole in the floor so that otherwise if you're here, 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 then you bonk your head on the ceiling. So we need to cut a hole in the floor. So we like to cut holes using difference. And if I want to know exactly where my stair is going to be, I can also use the bounding box. So watch what the bounding box does with stairs. Is it gives me the entire volume of the stair, and if I want to punch that hole, maybe I make that a little bit bigger. Take my second floor, difference that out. Now my stairs go up from one floor to the next. Okay. Now some of you may have stairs that do different things. Maybe they turn. If you've got Villa Savoye, you're doing a round staircase. But once you have that count and you know how many stairs you're going to need to go up, you can start to change their shape and rotate them and just extrude different solids. So for example, if I wanted to make a copy of this, and I wanted to make a switchback, I could take half of these stairs, I could rotate them 180 degrees, and then the one thing I would need here, what do you need between the bottom row and the top of row? We need a landing. So I would actually, this is how I would make my landing so that it matched my stair. So I would extrude the surface, extrude it another 3 feet, and then I would do a scale 1D, and I would match this to here. And then the one other thing you'll see is you actually, if you have a landing is really just one of your steps. So you could take your top step away, and you can move everything up one step. And now you have a switchback. Okay. If you have a rounded stair, you can build that stair using curves. So let's look at how we could do that. We can use the arc curve. So I'm going to click on this, hold it down, and I like this one. The second one is called Start, End, Point on Arc. So I'm going to click on that. Start, End, Point on Arc. I've got a nice round arc. I have a line that goes across here. And then I can take those two and I can join them to a closed curve, and then I can stop and I can extrude it. And if I delete this, then I have a more round stair. Okay, if you have a stair like this one in Villa Savoye, you are looking at something very similar to this that I just drew, except now here you need to break that landing, instead of being just one circle, into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little wedges. So let's look at how we would do that. So what I would do is, this is a good time for the array. So let's use our polar array, just like on our plans. So I drew a line here. I'm going to take my polar array. I'm going to click on that. Hit enter. I'm going to click the center. And then I should have, in order to match that, again, we're looking here. The number of segments is 6, but the number of lines is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. So I'm going to say 7 items. And then my angle to fill is only going to be 180. Right? Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wedges. That looks pretty good. So now I need to, I'm going to take this solid that I created and I'm going to explode it so that now it's a surface. And then I'm going to use the split command. And keep this one in mind because we use this for topography as well. So the split is next to the trim. And a split will take a surface and break it into many surfaces. So I'll show you how that works. Take this object to split, right click, and what do I want to split it with? I want to split it with these little wedge pieces I just created. I'm going to hit enter, and then what it should have done is created a bunch of little wedges for me. Now in theory I really only have to create one of these, because they all should be the same, but let's just start with each of these. I'm going to take each of these surfaces and I'm going to extrude them down to match that thickness. Now I have a bunch of poly surfaces. So I can start moving them up. So let's start here where the stairs came in. You can delete that. Let's delete that. Here's the wedge that stays. This wedge, let's move it up. And in this case, I'm going to hit move and move it up the height of the stair. Then I'm going to move this one up the height of the next stair. That. One more stair. One more stair. And now I have a spiral staircase. And once I have those, I can take these. I don't know if I need them all anymore. Probably not, because I've just added 5 more steps. But now I've got part of a spiral staircase. And then I can just get rid of all this extra stuff that was already there. All these surfaces I created to make all those little wedges. That can all go away. So now I have that spiral stair, and if I look at it in plan, that looks like the spiral stair you have. Boop, in Villa Savoye, right? So you're going from floor to floor, and you're creating those openings. So another thing we have in Villa Savoye, and we have this on a couple of other projects that you guys are doing, are these ramps. So let's just talk about how to create a ramp. All right, so we've got stairs. Now let's look at ramps are not nearly as steep as stairs. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to create a surface here, 12 inches. And let's say we want to ramp up 3 feet. So I'm going to actually create another block here. I'm going to use my 3-point rectangle. 1 point, 2 point, 3 points. And I'm going to say we're going up 3 feet. So I've got this zone here. That one's 3 feet. So let's say we want to ramp from this point to that point. So there's a couple of things I can do. I'm going to show you. The easiest one is to use the surface tool. So I'm going to click on that, and that you can make a surface of up to 4 points. So I'm going to go corner, corner, midpoint, midpoint. Now I have a ramp, but that is just a surface. So if I actually want that to be solid, I can use it, or I can use just a curve that I draw from here to here to here, and then I can close it with C. Now I've got a curve here, and I can extrude that curve horizontally. Solid, extrude. Now we have a ramp that is solid. Okay? If I wanted that surface to just be a ramp that had nothing underneath it, I could extrude that surface. I can do that a second time. Extrude the surface straight, click on the surface, give it a thickness, and now I have a solid surface. To get rid of that gunk on the top and the bottom, I would just use the difference tool to get rid of this and get rid of that. Now I've got a ramp. Okay. Once I have that, I'm going to do that. Go back to the wedge that I had. Once I have that ramp, I can also use it in tandem, because if I look here, again looking at the Le Savoie, we've got a ramp that goes up and goes up. So let's copy that. And then I'm going to move it from here to here. And I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees and then move it here. So now I have a ramp running 2 directions, right? So I can do that with solids, I can do that with surfaces. I could do this. Right? I can have thin ramps, depends what they look like, what you're trying to do. Okay? So, stairs and ramps. So that should get your vertical movement through your structure.